Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Zach. In this video, GaryVee speaking with SMBs in his 4Ds group chat, where he's going over how businesses can incorporate NFTs into the business without it having to be a business that is solely centered around NFTs. You'll see what I mean in this video. Let's have a listen.
More of a B2B print space.
Understood.
My background has been with the Fortune 100, so I was with 3M doing digital marketing, then AbbVie, which owns Humira, so we ran that center of excellence. So very familiar with the digital space, but kind of trying to, James was saying yesterday, being the king of the pivot, as he called you, as we think of that, think of our business, the direct marketing, the print space, and the evolution that's taking. How do you see that evolution and where do we go?
This is a challenging one because there's more homework required for me to truly answer you in the best way that I can. But I will say this. Fighting the actual market is the scariest thing of my life, which is why I'm always pivoting, because I have no interest in fighting the market. I assume for the rest of all of our lives, there'll be plenty of things printed. Like even with NFTs and the metaverse, everyone's like, I'm like, it's gonna take 50 years before we're living in the metaverse the way people are thinking it's gonna happen tomorrow. We'll be living there, but it's gonna be we live digitally now. Most of us are on our phones 4, 6, 9 hours a day. So I think the thing that you need to figure out is in declining market share. So is the overall market declining?
The overall market is declining.
Double digits each year? Like really intensely?
Yeah, it depends on which segment you're looking at, but yes.
Yeah, my intuition is this becomes a very simple game of like real life, meaning real life. What would you like to happen? There's the ideology part, which is this has been a business in the family for a long time. And so you might be emotionally invested in that story and want it to continue. And so thus you need to heavily innovate into the way I think about what Nintendo did. Nintendo started as a playing card company. They are not that today. So I think if you want to see this business last past you because of the way it's gone, you're gonna have to be in a different business because I don't think it'll be sustainable. If you don't mind, because you think, I don't know what your children's situation or then you've got to dominate market share until you're ready to be done. That's the actual answer to this business question. Do you start a completely different business that could be tangentially attached to it? Your printing infrastructure might be the reason you start a direct-to-consumer book business. It might be. But you could literally go into a completely different business. You could, as a division, whether it's me.
What's interesting is Gary hasn't actually spoken about NFTs yet, but this is of course, and we will get to the NFTs, but this is of course where we see that this is again just another traditional end of essentially going from one form or medium of popularity to another, right? From print, which is what this man is talking about, over to other forms like of course social marketing, etc. We haven't got NFTs yet, but we will do.
Making board games, making digital games, you could go anywhere. But you're not going to change the market. Right. The market's going to keep doing what it's doing.
Yeah, and I think
and especially with NFTs coming, like what's going to end up happening is because they're going to be utilities, people are going to go away from email and QR codes to NFTs, let alone print. So it's going to put more pressure on the overall philosophy. And as you know, every day there's a decision maker dying or retiring that has held on to print, and the person taking that job is not doing print.
Yeah.
And that puts pressure.
And I guess I have no tie to the actual machine putting ink on paper, right?
Correct.
I find, we try to help local businesses find, attract, engage, and retain, right? I mean, the whole life cycle that we're talking about, which is evolving into a.
But you have so many cogs into your infrastructure. You could, to your point, if you want to build a digital division, we've seen that happen for the last 25 years. Plenty of people in the print direct mail business and all the versions of it have done that. I'm challenging you to, that's the easy thing to think about because we've watched companies like yours do that for the last 25 years. I think service providing, even though I do it at scale, is a shit business. It's not fun. Yes, sir. So, one opportunity is to take your infrastructure and create a consumer business instead of a service business. I always like to think that way of like, well, we've got these assets, we can make shit. Should we make something to sell? Obviously a totally different gear of being in B2C than B2B. But it's a good time to debate it.
Yeah. What's funny is it's not our consumer business, but like the Etsy world has been coming, like we've been growing as the creatives are creative, but they have no outlet to actually produce. So it almost becomes more of a wholesale model, but they're looking, and that big supply chain sucks to deal. If anybody's, outsourced to anybody, oftentimes sucks.
100%.
They're not good at responding. And so we're like, hey, can we take our family, feel where it's a high touch, personal, and say, you're going to get that personal aspect of that business, right?
The answer is yes. And then it becomes a game of marketing on LinkedIn and Google search and pre-roll YouTube to win that market share.
So the other piece of our business.
I mean, people are gonna always make things on paper till the end. I just think it's the way you position it and where you decide to market against which behaviors, to your point. Etsy didn't exist 20 years ago.
Thanks. And so the other piece of our business is an awards and recognition space. We have been in the medical space. So if you go to your doctor and they're board certified, I've printed that certificate.
Oh, interesting.
I've owned that business for 80 years.
Yep.
Started with nursing pins when you had to have a pin on your hat, right? When you went in.
That's cool.
That's evolved now, but they still print these really high-end certificates. We do all that printing, all that framing for them. Mm-hmm. That brings us to the NFT space.
Okay.
So they're laggards. So literally I'm like, hey, can you make us a PDF so they can go to the hospital and, show them certificate? Because we have doctors like ripping out their certificates out of frames in order to show it to a hospital to say that I'm board. It's nuts. And it's like, it still goes, but they're not willing to even invest because a lot of them those boards are not big money. They're big. There's only a few people in some of them, but they own that space. If you're a surgeon, you have to be board certified, right? Like that, you don't work in a hospital without being board certified. So we're trying to help. But
you need to have the manifestation in physical form to like.
A lot of times, or they call and they'll get a letter from the board. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we are trying. Just the proof that they have been, and they'll get a physical letter from the board saying that they're board certified. And some are more involved than.
That is a out of central casting of a business that's going to be disrupted by the blockchain.
Yeah, and so how do you compete?
You're thinking the right way. To your point, you create it. So something else. It's always the same thing. Put yourself out of business before someone else does. I think the way you need to think about it is get incredibly educated and become the creative and infrastructure that builds the board certified NFTs. You do them in NFT form, always, starting tomorrow, but you print it and give it to them still, and then in a cycle of 15 years, you'll have that leverage. It's almost like the evolution of the pin that your grandfather, started. You do it now, so you are that, and the market comes to you because there's not a very heavy cost for you to do it.
So, launched a brand about.
Okay, so there's really two important things here that I've seen here, which is the first one being about essentially the pivot from being a print business, which of course we've seen radio, TV, and then of course social, mobile, etc. So pivoting from the print business into what else do we do here, as Gary's saying, maybe pivoting to, rather than a B2C, a B2B business, or vice versa, essentially using the tools and assets you already have. And then secondly, looking at another question regarding NFTs being how, of course, do we convince a certain body to take on NFTs versus what we traditionally have. And realistically, it's a case of providing both options, as he's saying, essentially do something and people will come to it eventually. Of course, it will take some time depending on who is making those decisions, but at the end, that is what can be done. What it also shows though is that realistically, not everything needs to be about NFTs to have an NFT company, or vice versa. You don't need to be an NFT company as such to own or do NFTs. NFTs is meant to be simply a system that helps your business. It's not something that your business has to become. That being said, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear. Take This is the Web3 channel, covering everything happening in the Web3 space from crypto, NFT, and metaverse news. For anything on that list, make sure to subscribe. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next Web3 video.